What if the deadliest criminal wasn't a gunman, but a businessman? What if the largest killer wasn't seen on the streets, but sat quietly behind a desk? Today we uncover a story where legality itself became a weapon of mass destruction. Welcome to Red Dossier.
Before we move on to the next part, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening.
Who would you fear more, a doctor or a teacher, if both turned out to be cold-blooded killers? The question sounds absurd, almost offensive. Yet when placed beside the stories of Zhenli Ye Gon and his creation, Ye Gon Corporation, it forces us to reconsider the very nature of crime, morality, and the ways in which evil weaves itself into the fabric of society. Zhenli Ye Gon, a Chinese-born businessman who rose to prominence in Mexico, became a global symbol of a new breed of criminality. The corporate trafficker, not a man who carried weapons, not a man who directly spilled blood. Instead, Ye Gon trafficked in chemicals, the lifeblood of methamphetamine production, and enabled entire generations to destroy themselves one inhalation at a time. His primary charges: money laundering, illegal importation of precursor chemicals, and aiding and abetting drug production at a continental scale. The sheer volume of his crimes defies imagination. When Mexican authorities raided one of his properties in 2007, they discovered over $205 million in cash, the largest drug-related cash seizure in world history at that time. Alongside Zhenli Ye Gon stood Ye Gon Corporation, his corporate arm, carefully crafted to appear legitimate. Officially, it was a pharmaceutical importer, operating within the bounds of Mexican and international law. In practice, it served as a critical artery for the supply of precursor chemicals like pseudoephedrine and ephedrine, essential to the methamphetamine industry. Expert analysts have described Ye Gon Corporation as the invisible skeleton behind the synthetic drug epidemic that exploded across Latin America in the early 2000s. Crime specialists often argue that figures like Zhenli Ye Gon are far more dangerous than the violent cartel lords of popular imagination. Pablo Escobar built his empire with bullets and terror. Zhenli Ye Gon built his with invoices, shipping manifests, and legal loopholes. Where Escobar's violence was loud and bloody, Ye Gon's destruction was silent, metastasizing through families, communities, and entire nations without a single gunshot. Both Zhenli Ye Gon and Ye Gon Corporation operated under the veneer of respectability, exploiting the blind spots of regulatory agencies, banking systems, and international trade laws. Their greatest weapon was not brute force, but bureaucratic manipulation, the art of hiding vast criminality beneath layers of legal paperwork. In many ways, they exemplify a terrifying reality of modern organized crime. Evil no longer always wears a mask. Sometimes it wears a suit and signs documents in plain sight. Thus, the initial question remains: who is the greater killer? The doctor who swore to heal, or the businessman who swore to serve? When legality is used as camouflage, when public trust is weaponized, perhaps the most dangerous criminals are not those who take life directly, but those who facilitate death on an industrial scale. As we move forward, we will peel back the layers behind these two entities. We will trace the paths they took, the methods they employed, and the psychological mechanisms that allowed them to rationalize mass destruction. In this journey, the line between business and atrocity will blur, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about how societies reward ambition, even when it is rooted in death. Zhenli Ye Gon was not born into power, nor did he inherit the resources that later fueled his criminal empire. Born in Shanghai, China, he grew up in a modest family, an ordinary boy in a city bustling with ambition and constraints. He left China early, seeking fortune in Mexico, a land offering the kind of opportunities unavailable in his homeland. At first, his ventures appeared legitimate. Chemical imports, pharmaceutical distribution, a growing business portfolio built on the globalizing trade routes between Asia and Latin America. But ambition, when untethered by conscience, rarely remains content with modest success. Ye Gon discovered a darker, more lucrative avenue, the grey market of precursor chemicals. These were not outright illegal in themselves, but their ultimate use in methamphetamine production turned them into the invisible bloodline of a growing catastrophe. Where there was overwhelming demand, Ye Gon saw overwhelming profit. Ethics became an obstacle easily discarded. Ye Gon Corporation was not simply a company, it was a system designed to obscure intent. Multiple layers of shell companies masked the true destination of shipments. Chemical orders were fragmented, rerouted through third countries, sanitized through fabricated end-use declarations. Employees were trained not merely in sales, but in plausible deniability. It was a masterclass in criminal logistics, executed under the guise of international commerce. Zhenli Ye Gon's method of operation was distinct from the brutish violence of drug cartels. He did not move drugs across borders hidden in trucks. He moved the ingredients themselves, legally, exploiting customs codes and bureaucratic negligence. Unlike street-level dealers, Ye Gon weaponized paperwork and international free trade agreements. It was a style of crime so sophisticated that for years Mexican authorities barely understood the scale of what he had unleashed. Psychologically, Ye Gon exemplified what criminologists call instrumental psychopathy, an absence of empathy not driven by rage, but by the cold calculation of profit maximization. His victims were faceless statistics. He did not have to hear the coughing fits of addicts or see the hollowed faces of the dying. His view of the world was reduced to ledgers, shipments, and quarterly profits. The consequences of his actions, however, were anything but abstract. According to estimates from the Mexican Attorney General's office, the quantities of pseudoephedrine and ephedrine imported by Ye Gon Corporation between 2002 and 2006 could have produced over 19 tons of methamphetamine, a supply capable of sustaining millions of individual doses, each a potential death sentence. His downfall did not come through a daring raid or a dramatic confession. Instead, it was arrogance, plain and simple. Ye Gon believed himself invulnerable, ensconced within his empire of invoices and bank accounts. But in 2007, Mexican authorities investigating a separate money laundering operation stumbled upon a warehouse stuffed with cash, $205 million, stacked in closets, crammed into safes, bundled into suitcases. No legitimate enterprise could justify such an accumulation. The evidence was too staggering, too undeniable. Faced with imminent arrest, Ye Gon fled to the United States, hoping to exploit legal protections. Yet, American authorities acted swiftly, indicting him under the Controlled Substances Act and money laundering statutes. His arrest marked the collapse not just of a man, but of an entire corporate apparatus that had quietly fueled a continental drug crisis. While Zhenli Ye Gon himself became a notorious figure, Ye Gon Corporation dissolved more quietly, its tendrils severed through international cooperation between enforcement agencies. Yet, the template Ye Gon perfected using legitimate trade structures for criminal ends did not disappear. Other organizations, learning from his rise and fall, adapted and evolved, ensuring that the threat he embodied would persist long after his empire crumbled. This raises an unsettling truth. In the age of globalization, crime often dresses itself in the garments of legitimacy. Violence is no longer always necessary to destroy lives. Sometimes all it takes is a shipping manifest, a customs loophole, and the ruthless pursuit of profit. As we move to the final part of our journey, we will confront the question that now looms large. What lessons can be drawn from the stories of Zhenli Ye Gon and Ye Gon Corporation? What separates their methods and failures? And most crucially, how should societies respond to this new breed of white-collar mass murderers? The story of Zhenli Ye Gon and Ye Gon Corporation did not simply end with handcuffs and forfeiture. It left behind a blueprint for a new type of criminal enterprise, one that exploits legality, navigates globalization, and inflicts devastation without ever pulling a trigger. Zhenli Ye Gon's legacy is one of audacious manipulation. His empire demonstrated how international laws and free trade agreements designed to foster prosperity could be weaponized by those who understood their blind spots. His downfall did not erase the model he perfected. Instead, it seeded a future where organized crime would increasingly resemble legitimate business, where suits replace guns and courtrooms replace battlefields. Comparatively, figures like Pablo Escobar and Felix Gallardo operated through overt violence. Their empires thrived on bloodshed and terror. Zhenli Ye Gon, in contrast, built his dominion through invisibility. He did not challenge the state with gunfire. He infiltrated it through commercial transactions. The damage he caused was quieter, but no less catastrophic. Over 19 tons of methamphetamine linked to his chemical imports flooded Mexico and the United States between 2002 and 2006, a wave of destruction that no amount of police raids could fully reverse. In professional analysis, Ye Gon is classified among the most dangerous profiles of criminal minds. The white-collar facilitator. Unlike traditional drug lords, he understood that power in the modern era lies not in street wars, but in supply chains and financial systems. His crimes exemplified the evolution of criminality in the 21st century, from brute force to systemic subversion. The comparison between Zhenli Ye Gon and Ye Gon Corporation also illuminates a striking dichotomy. Ye Gon, as an individual, embodied ambition without restraint, arrogance without foresight. His fatal error was believing that paperwork could forever shield him from scrutiny. Meanwhile, Ye Gon Corporation, as an entity, was designed to survive beyond any single human figure. It represented the shift toward decentralized, resilient criminal infrastructures, faceless, adaptable, harder to destroy. Reflecting on their fall, critical lessons emerge. Societies cannot afford to view crime solely through the lens of violence. The most lethal threats often arrive wearing the mask of legality, hiding in plain sight among the institutions we are taught to trust. Regulatory agencies must adapt, evolving faster than those who seek to exploit their inertia. Law enforcement must understand that dismantling a criminal enterprise today demands forensic financial expertise as much as tactical raids. But perhaps the most sobering lesson is this: true evil often thrives, not on hatred or rage, but on indifference. The indifference of officials who fail to act, of corporations that prioritize profit over ethics, and of publics that choose not to question what lies beneath prosperity's polished surface. Zhenli Ye Gon and Ye Gon Corporation may have fallen, but the conditions that allowed them to rise remain dangerously intact. Their story forces a grim reflection. If we do not reform the systems they manipulated, we will inevitably face new versions of the same nightmare. Slicker, smarter, and even more devastating. Thus, the final question lingers, unanswered and urgent. In a world where crime no longer wears a villain's face but a businessman's smile, are we truly prepared to recognize it when it comes for us again? The face of crime is changing, faster and more dangerously than ever before. Gone are the days when evil wore a mask. Today, it wears a tailored suit and a polished smile. If we fail to recognize it, if we continue to trust appearances over truth, how long before we all become victims of crimes we can neither see nor name? If you found this investigation compelling, remember to like the video, subscribe to Red Dossier, and turn on the notification bell for more deep dives into the unseen side of crime. And now, we leave you with a question: who is truly more dangerous, the man with a gun, or the man who sells the means to destroy millions without ever pulling a trigger? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay sharp.